Hi, everybody. Joe Chaffee here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. I've been experiencing a bit of tech hell this morning. It's been a lot of fun. But coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, we'll be looking at this heat wave that's going to be covering the Midwest, Ohio Valley, northern mid Atlantic to New England. We are also going to be looking at potential flooding in the northern plains, a winter storm, believe it or not, in the northern Rockies, and a potential tropical cyclone in the southwest Gulf that will probably bring torrential rains up and down the coast of Texas and even into parts of southwest Louisiana. So we'll be talking about all of this tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we are on Monday, the 17th of June. I think this is about as late as I've ever seen winter storm warnings being posted up for parts of western Montana and Idaho. Granted, they are for the highest elevations, but it's still the fact that you've got winter storm warnings to me is just a standout for this time of year. Heat advisories in the lower Great Lakes, as well as parts of the Ohio Valley, northern Mid-Atlantic into New England. Those most in eastern Pennsylvania to southern England, and particularly the advisories that are up for the Northeast and the northern Mid-Atlantic states really start. Those start tomorrow. In the Ohio Valley and lower lakes, they underway today, and that's the hot air that is headed this way. Meantime, on the satellite, other than some clouds and maybe some showers in northern Maine and the St. Lawrence Valley, up and down the East Coast today, it is fine and dandy with sunshine, and also back through the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley. You're starting to see moisture building up in the Gulf of Mexico. This is going to become a problem for areas like coastal Texas and southwest Louisiana. Severe thunderstorms and heavy rains moving through the northern plains this morning is evident on the latest radar. It's fairly loaded with showers and thunderstorms there, but the east is mostly quiet, save for Maine and up into the St. Lawrence Valley and a small portion of north central New York State. Some showers in Mississippi and southern Louisiana. And we've got mountain snows and valley rains up in the northern Rockies. And the Storm Prediction Center for today, the risk area is going to be in the northern plains to the western lakes, where we have a marginal to slight risk there and a 5 to 10% tornado risk from western Nebraska northeastward into Wisconsin. The other threat, of course, will be potential for strong winds and some hail. And again, heavy rain, I think, is probably the bigger deal. As we move to tomorrow, the risk area continues from eastern Nebraska, northern Kansas, northeastward into Minnesota and western Wisconsin. And there is a small area of tornado risk on the northern end of this. And on day three, it's just general thunderstorm activity. And note that all through all of this, in much of the eastern part of the United States, there's been little, if any, thunderstorms to worry about. And starting on Wednesday, what you're seeing here with general thunderstorms being forecast, I think it really just reflects the fact that it's going to get so hot inland that there might be an isolated uh, thunderstorm or two that forms. Other than that, there's going to be very little, if any, rain going on in the next 7 days. What you see here in southern New England back into northeastern Pennsylvania of a half inch plus, that is for probably next Sunday night. And WPC's forecast goes from 12Z today, 8 a.m. today to 8 a.m. Monday. Note the big rains of the northern plains. We're talking 3 to 4 inches or more in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And of course, the other area of concern is what you see down here in Texas, where we have an area of 5 to 10 inches of rain being indicated for much of coastal Texas, and actually extending inland to cities like San Antonio and Houston, and I'm sorry, cities like San Antonio and Austin, and coastal cities like Houston and Galveston. And then from about Freeport south to Brownsville, there's a stripe of 10 to 15 inches. And as always in the summertime, local amounts could easily wind up being double what's being forecast. Mid-Atlantic, southern states, back through the Ohio Valley, other than some patches of a half inch plus and maybe some thunderstorms that pop up later this week, we're talking very little to no rain over the next 7 days. So it's really about high pressure that is moving offshore now We still have relatively comfortable conditions in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic, although the dew points are coming up today closer to 60 by the end of the day. Temperatures will be in the mid 80s to around 90. It'll be a little bit cooler in New England. Then Tuesday, probably through Sunday, it's heat and humidity. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I think those will be the three hottest days with temperatures in many areas in the Midwest and Northeast in the mid to upper 90s. Wouldn't shock me to see a couple of spots get to 100. We have the potential for a developing tropical cyclone in the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see that by Tuesday night we start to get into some heavy rains along the Texas Gulf Coast and into southwest Louisiana. So that's already being watched by the weather prediction folks with flash flood risks, thunderstorms up in the northern plains. So most of the middle part of the country is going to deal with this. The next cold front not likely to pass until sometime late Sunday as a cold front attempts to go by, and hopefully that will break the back of the heat wave for at least a couple of days come early next week. Just a couple of highlights here to show you. WPC has a moderate risk for flash flooding along the Texas Gulf Coast, particularly in the areas around Houston, which we know that southeast Texas has been absolutely clobbered with rain in the last 6 weeks or so. And this is going to be another one that's going to cause a big problem. We also have elevated risk, 15 to 40%, which WPC calls a slight risk from Kansas northeastward on up into Minnesota and Wisconsin. And this is for today and for tomorrow, rather. And we still have that rain going on today, but it'll build up certainly for tonight and tomorrow. And as far as the tropics are concerned, the Hurricane Center keeping an eye on this area of disturbed weather in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Regardless of whether a tropical storm forms out of this, we're still going to see those flooding rains along the Texas coast. We also have another area of disturbed weather. Models are spinning up a very small system here east of the Bahamas and moving it northwestward to the southeast coast in about 3 or 4 days. We'll keep an eye on it, but right now it looks to be a fairly small, compact system with not producing any kind of widespread effects if that's the way it turns out. So don't forget, this is all going to be updated tonight in a big way, like we do every night on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and that's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time.